All right. Hello and welcome back to my Facebook Live Digital Leadership Series. My name is Doyle Buehler, and today I'm with Mike Atwood, who I'm going to introduce to you very shortly. And today we're going to be talking about how do you measure success? Is your marketing disconnected from your results? And, can you measure and validate your business impact accurately with marketing, with the results that you get, and what drives your sales and marketing as well? So we're going to be getting into that in just a moment. First, I want to welcome you to the program Digital Leadership Facebook Live Breakthrough Series. As I mentioned, my name is Doyle Buehler, and my goal is to help you better understand and pursue what matters most in your digital business and how to make a difference with your digital strategy through enhancing and embracing your digital leadership. I help enterprise and entrepreneurs scale, grow, and disrupt their business and sales through digital leadership. And I'm the author of the book on digital strategy, The Digital Delusion. The overall purpose here is to answer one important question: what real-world digital strategies actually work with my business? And of course, there's no one size fits all, but the goal here is to help you decide which strategies can work best for you. And as I mentioned in today's show, I'm talking with Mike Atwood from Proof, based out of Boston. And it's a company that's based on computing and validating business results. And we're going to have some fascinating discussions about results and about marketing in general and that sort of thing. So thanks so much for joining me today, Mike. How are you?
Hey, Doyle, I'm great. Thanks for so much for having me on the show today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Mike. So you're in Boston right now. And we met, where was that, in Nashville in July? Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it was back in Nashville, correct.
So thanks for joining. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Mike.
So while I'm based in Boston, the company is actually based out of Phoenix. And so I'm here in Boston. I'm primarily, my background is of the agency world. I've worked with both startup and Fortune 500 companies in agency capacity to help essentially drive business performance. And I came to Proof back in April. I've known the CEO for the last 5 or 6 years, and Proof is solving a problem that in the agency world I was always struggling with, and that was how do I show my clients that what we're doing is actually having an impact, a board level impact on their business performance.
Yeah. Are you actually getting paid for results, do you mean?
Well, that's an interesting point. We don't see it being too far off to, agencies start being paid based on performance, right? So I don't think that model is out of the question. In fact, I think some of the agencies are doing that now, where they're saying, hey, you pay us our costs, right? And our margin is really going to come from our performance. And now we have actual tools providing that we are transparent collectively around how we share data across an organization so that it's federated. We can both accomplish that. So there's pros, there's a lot of pros for both sides of the fence.
So where do you get to bring? I mean, I'd love to talk about sort of the philosophical indicators behind, working for results, which obviously a lot of industries do, except the ad agencies. But where do you start with measuring the results? Let's be honest here. It is a quagmire.
It's often difficult, right? In that most organizations, I guess their structures are probably set up where they're measuring individual performance, right? So your KPIs, and that's leveled across the organization or the function of marketing, communications, or even sales, right? The challenge is to take a deeper look across channels, right? So if you think about PESO, which is paid, earned, shared, owned media, and you try to understand the contribution that each, when correlated, has on performance, it becomes extremely compelling. Most organizations are able to very clearly see a paid, right? If you think about demand gen, they can see a direct correlation of their demand or their paid efforts to the impact on sales, right? The funnel. What they're unable to do is unable to understand how does shared and earned media impact the sales effort, right? Let's face it, marketing whole job is to support sales, right? They're trying to enable them to sell more, bigger deals, faster, right? And how do you prove that as a marketer or communicator that you're having an impact on that ability of sales?
So yeah, so walk me through, like, how do we, what kind of KPIs would we be looking for? Again, what results should we should be striving towards?
Well, I think at the end of the day, depending on where you are in the organization, right, everything kind of funnels up. If you think of the traditional organizational an org chart, right, the middle management are trying to focus on very specific KPIs that roll up throughout an organization. Those, once they get to the CMO level, right, need to be transferable to a board level conversation. So, boards are asking and CEOs are asking, where's the economic alignment here, right? So we've given you X as a spend. Where has and when has that spend impacted our business? So if you think about it as a flow chart, right, it kind of flows up and down, kind of both ways. The measurements that are important vary depending on what you're trying to accomplish, right? So oftentimes we're starting with organizations on a very focused effort, right, to show that you were able to show the cause and effect relationships of what you're doing. That's typically migrates throughout an organization once they see the value.
And okay, so yeah, so I understand that, but why? Let's talk. Why hasn't this been done earlier? Like, let's be completely honest here. Like, was it a tech thing? Was it just sort of didn't want to do it? We didn't want to see.
Yeah, that's an interesting. So interesting point. So why wasn't it done before? Part of it is technology. Part of it is available data. So if you think about, in an organization, a large organization, we typically are dealing with organizations that have longer cycle businesses, right? So beyond 90 days. Data just historically has been a challenge, right? Either the right data, the wrong data, or unavailable data. That has now been solved for the most part, right? You can get third-party data. You can use your own data out of your MarTech stack, your sales stack, right? And you can start measuring those things, or at least computing those things against the performance of the business. So the technology certainly has helped solve that problem. I think most organizations up to date have used predictive models, which allow to some extent to give you an indication specifically around paid, right, the impact that you're going to have. The challenge with that is there's some bias included, right? If you're a mid-level marketer, right, and you've got specific KPIs, you may invest. This is not true with everybody, of course, right? But you may invest towards things that are going to score well, right? Which may have a direct impact on things like compensation.
Yeah.
The thing about with proof, it's computed, not predictive. So data doesn't lie, right?
Okay, so maybe you could explain that concept. What's the difference between computed and predictive then?
Well, predictive has bias. It has models. So predictive is based off of models that you've created, right? An individual human has created. Computed is based off of data. So you've got to say, okay, what do I really want to compute, and what do I want the end result to be? What do I want to find, right?
Yeah.
Or where am I leading? Where am I going with it? So you can start doing correlations there. But the data is historical data, or even synthetic data based off of historical data is data, right? That doesn't change.
Okay. Can you walk me through like an example of a project? You don't have to give any names, but how you used it and sort of how it worked.
So we did something really interesting recently as a proof of concept to help an agency understand how the tool worked. And I thought it was pretty fascinating, right? So if you think about social media, for instance, right, and we all are using social media to try to increase engagement, right? We're trying to fill the funnel. We're trying to influence decision makers. We did an interesting project with an agency that was working with a client who they wanted to understand, this is very very niche, right? Very simplistic. They want to understand the impact of Twitter on unique visitors to their website and the impact of those unique visitors on revenue. Right. So we started looking at 3 years or 2 years worth of data to say, okay, well, we know that Twitter is having a profound impact on unique visitors to the website. How is that then translating to revenue? And the correlation, right? It was a high correlation of, maybe if you think of data science, it typically is like a 0.0 to or 0.1 to a 0.9 or 1.0. We removed the decimal to make it simpler, but their correlation score was very high on Twitter to uniques. Uniques to revenue was very low. So what we found in comparing that data to other data in the funnel was that Twitter essentially had very little impact on the revenue, but it had a tremendous amount of value in getting uniques to the website. Over time, what they saw was the data revealed that individual independent channels, so let's say shared and earned, had an impact on the revenue as a result of those uniques, right? So if you think of the natural progression of you as a buyer, Twitter maybe gets you to the site to check it out, right? But what's going to help you gain that trust and momentum, right, is going to be independent channels. So we were able to determine that and see it and see the ups and downs right throughout the process.
Nice. Okay, so you map out your digital ecosystem, things are coming, and compute where they can potentially go. Is that?
Yeah, so good. Yeah, that's pretty accurate, right? So you're able to see headwinds and tailwinds, right? So you're able to see, which is important in business, right? The most interesting thing about Proof and the platform itself is that large organizations that have, or any organization that has a longer cycle business, right, is typically time lag becomes a huge issue. So if your spend, and this is getting to your point, your spend in January has no impact on revenue in that same January. Right. That the impact of your spend in January has an impact somewhere down the pipe. So the time to impact is a hugely critical component to being able to show not only how your investment is impacting the business, but when.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a pretty important KPI that I don't think any time to impact, unless you're like an e-commerce store. Time to impact can vary greatly. That's a really cool point. And I don't think anybody has really, to my knowledge, has sort of been measuring that. What have you found is kind of a range? Like, do you work mostly with service-based or product-based businesses?
That's the great. So with our tool, and I'm not trying to do a sales pitch here. With our tool, it's more of it's agnostic. So it doesn't matter. It depends. Yeah. So long as go back to your point about e-commerce, right? So if you're the local feed store that's selling dog food, and you send a coupon to somebody, right, via email, you typically know within 30 days what the impact of that coupon was, right? But if you're selling mainframes or high-end software or something that has a longer than 90-day cycle, you typically cannot see what the time lag is, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges with the business with marketing leaders today is that they're almost setting there's a false sense of they walk into these new opportunities, they think they're going to have huge scores, right? And they're very successful in doing the things that are short-term wins, right? And this could be equated to politics too, right? But if you think about, you go in somewhere, you do your short-term wins over 2 years, right? You've got some nice revenue projected. Your real impact, right, doesn't happen until after you leave, until the tenure's over. And that's a direct result of not setting the proper benchmark and understanding how long it's going to take you to impact the business, right? And the true impact is over time and space. It's not in the short term.
Yeah. Like in a service type business, are you saying that you're better able to track that gap that from when you did something to when you see a result, or is that still kind of
so time lag? Time lag is something that we take into account in the software. So when Proof came about, it started in theory 10 or 12 years ago. In practice, right? So pen on paper, trying to solve a business problem. Our CEO was working for a Fortune 100 company where the CEO had gone to the CEO and said, "Hey, I've got to increase my spend," and the CEO looked at him and said, why would I ever increase your spend? I have no idea what the contribution that you're making to the business. There's no economic alignment. Yeah. So from that point on, it actually started through a series of other Fortune 100 companies of saying, okay, pen to paper to software, right? And it moved into commercially available tool. But the tool is actually made up of algorithms that have been around for some time. Yeah. The genius behind it is our technology team was able to, in a very systematic way, automate a collection of algorithms to allow you to do the computations and include time lag.
Okay.
So if you think about even in your own role, right? Typically, when you're a senior marketing leader, when you're showing your results, it's as booked, right? And as booked is absolutely not correlated to reality.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And it goes back to what I said before. The money you spend in January has no impact on the revenue that you're getting in January.
Yeah. Yeah.
So setting that proper expectation around when and how is important.
Okay. No, that's cool. So do you have, I mean, the sort of where do you see this development of this technology going?
For us, I think, well, so I think organizations are requiring that, their individual, the business leaders across an organization are able to clearly show how their investments and how their efforts are contributing to the business, right? So the bottom line, and we're talking about balance sheet, right? It's move it from one side to the other. We can't view it as capital anymore, right? It's or whatever. It's got to be aligned with what the expectations of the business are, and there's going to be clear indications and proof around the ability to make the investments and show the progress.
Yeah. Yeah. No, excellent. Yeah. And that kind of brings it back down to something that's again tangible for businesses that they can use. I was actually reading an article by some CMO. I might be able to find it and put it in the notes, but yeah, that was what his concern was, that, and I agree. And I'm sure, 99% of people out in the industry can agree that there is no correlation between what you spend and what you, so many, untangible, soft connections that you might make that just too difficult to track. So you're saying that you're building that technology to allow that to happen, to kind of really monitor and understand what's happening behind the web structure. Is that right?
Yeah. So if you think about, so this is kind of a direct quote from a CMO the other day, is you folks have cracked the code. You figured out the last mile of attribution.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're all responsible for our own individual KPIs, but where it becomes important, right? And let's think about those as cause, right? Yeah. Our KPIs around, how many people do we get to like something, or how many people do we get to respond to something? Those are important measures at some level, right? But the real importance is what effect have those causes had on things that are important to the management team, right? How are they reporting? And having a direct correlation, dollar for dollar, cash on cash impact statement is extremely important. And as far as where organizations are going, I think it's going to be true across the entire organization. One of the reasons why Proof was purposely built to be agnostic is, we're having conversations with chief risk officers, CHROs, right? It's hey, HR, for instance, hey, we want to understand the cause and effect relationships of our talent acquisition efforts, and what's the real cost to the business if what does the brand value mean to our talent acquisition efforts, right? Are we spending less? Are we paying less? Are we retaining more over time? Right. So little things like that have a huge impact on things that typically haven't been seen in the market. And I shouldn't say little things, they are big things.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you can sort of see this wave coming in terms of how do we actually manage that. So where can businesses, agents start with something like this? Like, what do they need to know before they would say implement a tool like yours and like other competitors around that area?
So typically when we're starting with an organization, it's what do you have access to, right? There's a little bit of fear sometimes in organizations of, geez, what am I going to find out?
Yeah, really.
What if I've been well, no, not that so much as, that's a good point, but it's not so much that as, what if we've been overspending? If you think about the law of diminishing returns, you're going to actually see where let's say your spend in shared media was X, right? Or paid media was X, and even break it down further. Let's say your spend in trade shows was 10 million, right? And the impact that those trade shows had on your business was less than 2% of sales, right? Probably not a huge it's probably not a terrific investment. So there's a law of diminishing returns there, right? So where is that, right? And where does the threshold happen? And trying to understand that and using something like proof to help you understand it becomes extremely important. So what we try to do is work with organizations to say, hey, don't think of enterprise-wide. Start with something simple, right? Let's do a proof of concept to show that the value, right? Understand, uncover things that may have been hidden in your data, and then start to think strategically about how do we scale it out. But it's not just something you kind of dump in somebody's lap and expect, for them to run wild with it. It does take a little bit of time to think about strategically, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, and I guess that's the key there, is making sure that you're very strategic about this, and making sure that those decisions, help the business, and also create some efficiencies as well, because that's really the business, creating that continuous improvement and making sure that you're able to stand behind what you provide and that sort of thing. So fascinating.
It is, and back to the point earlier, it doesn't have to be grand scale. If you just want to understand, the cause and effect relationships of something very specific, that's very possible, right? So I kind of play around with it to do interesting things. I will take census data and populate it just to find out what the impact is. There's a lot of interesting things you can do. It can be fun. I think one of the great things that our team has done is made it so that the software is usable across domains, right? So this is our recent 451 research impact report that came out, and nobody else can do it securely, is be able to work across domains with data that doesn't necessarily share raw data across those domains. So if you're an enterprise, you've got contractors, agencies, you're all able to individually upload that data, raw data, and see the impact of those things across the organization without others seeing the raw data.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this technology develops. And obviously, we're kind of at the beginning of the stages, but I'm all for making marketing more efficient and more results based. So.
It's definitely it goes back to that Wanamaker quote, right? I know that I'm spending I only know where I'm spending 50% of my advertising, right? Or where? Yeah, exactly. So we're solving hopefully we're solving that problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's cool. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mike. I really appreciate it. Discovering some new ideas and new concepts for myself, which was absolutely fantastic. How can we find you? How can we get in touch with you?
So you can find me on any of the social channels. So Twitter at Atwood Michael, LinkedIn, just Mike Atwood. You can also email me at mike.atwood@get-proof.com. And you can find me on Facebook if that's your channel.
Cool. All right. And I'll have all of the links in the notes for this episode as well. So
beautiful.
Excellent. So I'm just going to wrap up, Mike. Thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. If you do have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. So as I go through these, there's three main categories that we go through as part of the Digital Leadership Facebook Live events. On Mondays, I talk about the state of digital, where I talk about specific ideas and insights that are happening right now, how they affect your business, and what you can do about it from a strategic standpoint. On Wednesdays, I have digital leadership guests, and I was thankfully joined by Mike Atwood today, an expert in the field, and discuss their strategies for success. And then on Fridays, I have my Ask Your Marketing and Strategy Q&A, where we go through challenges that you might be facing. So thanks again for watching. Again, please like and share if you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you online.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.